Okay, thank you. I have a vast knowledge of the city's budget. I worked in city government before at the executive level, so I understand the process that goes into setting the budgets, the public hearing, working with the department heads. I believe in letting department heads set their budgets because they are closer to the issues. They understand what their departments need. And so those department heads would set their budgets. The mayor and the CAO's responsibility is to bring all of that together and have a defined, comprehensive budget. Previously, I've also worked as a community development coordinator at a private company, and so we have to set budgets and meet deadlines. We have to follow 3 fiscal years. We have our fiscal year for the federal government, we have our fiscal year for the state, and then we have our own internal fiscal year within the organization. And so we have to prepare budgets and meet deadlines and meet goals, revenue projection. And when you don't make your revenue, you have to make the adjustments. As a Caddo Parish Commissioner, as the legislative side of it, I get to do the part where we adopt and amend, we ask questions, we give oversight. And so I have a vast knowledge of budgeting, from revenue collection to budgeting to amending the budget, and again, making out those goals. If you have, if your sales tax revenue is coming in below what you predicted, you have to make the adjustments within the budget. If you are working to keep your pension system solvent and things are going awry, you have to work to keep that solvent. And so all of those are the working mechanics of the budget. It is a large number, and so you have to have someone who's experienced, who understands there's a difference between the general fund budget and the capital budget. Then you have special revenue funds specifically for streets and drainage, specifically for water, that have to be dedicated to those enterprise funds, such as the airport. And so I do have an intimate knowledge of municipal budgeting.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was 22 years old, I was a platoon leader in Baghdad, Iraq. I led, multiple soldiers. But what people don't know is I had a multi-million-dollar operating budget for the train up to go into Iraq, and then once we were in Iraq. So that training budget consisted of, weapon costs, vehicle maintenance, you name it. So I was managing a multi-million-dollar operating budget when I was 22 years old. And that was my first position in the Army. My last position in the Army, I was a company commander over 100 soldiers. And again, we had a very expensive operating budget. People have seen some of the DoD contracts, and I was a field artillery officer, and we had rounds that cost $80,000. So I've managed extremely large budgets before, and this wouldn't be any difference. On top of the fact that my undergraduate degree is in economics as well.
That's a very good question. I appreciate the opportunity to answer it. I have an MBA Business Administration from Centenary College. I've worked in numerous jobs where I had to be in charge of budgets. The largest budget that I've ever had to operate was the budget that I had in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. The budget was $1.5 billion per year. I was in charge of the infrastructure there. I also worked for Caddo Parish as the Director of Public Works. I worked in that position, and I managed the Public Works Department budget, and I interacted with the other departments so that we could have these budgets in line. So I think that's my answer.
Great question. Yes, very well aware of the budget, and I've broken it down many times. Myself, I have to take you to where I came from to here. I moved back to Shreveport 12 years ago. Prior to that, I was a region manager for Rollins Incorporated. I had 17 operations that I managed. In that, what we did is I hired, trained, developed all of our leaders of each operation. Each one had an operation. It could have been anywhere from a low end of maybe 1.5 to 10 million on each one of them. We had in excess, it was nowhere near 488 million as our budget is, but it was very close. Each year we basically went in, divided up our budget. I am one who, if you look at our budget now, our general fund is like this. And what I want to do is I want to close that gap. I want to make sure that we absolutely go in and we can detail out that budget. Even as a general fund as this, we understand what goes into it, but I think it needs to be specifically earmarked for certain expenses, because if you don't do that, it's a gray area, nobody knows. And I think that is something that we're going to have to do. And I think with the proper CAO that is going to come in, that's going to be the person I'm going to lean on a lot for our budgeting. But again, as a mayor, I'm going to be extremely involved in every aspect of it, simply because it's my control. But my experience is that I've done it many times. I live with budgets, so it's something that I'm familiar with. I understand our city, understand our needs. I also understand that we have a right now with our infrastructure, it's going to cost $1 billion to fix. I've looked at that. I've looked at our cost. I've looked at a lot of things that I know we have to do, and in order to address that, it's kind of like if this was a cruise ship, going down. This is Shreveport. We can't flip it. We can't. It's going in the wrong direction, but we can't flip it in a day. It's going to take some time, and we all know that. It's going to take proper planning, but we have to take. And what I want to do, I'm going to kind of delve off to this just a second. But what I really want to do with our infrastructure is take and adopt a managed street repair program, not just I'm going to give you $1 million and you $1 million, and we run out, and all of a sudden you have your project's not complete because you wanted $1 million, but it ended up costing you $1.4 million, and we ran out. So now we have cones everywhere. So we will have a managed street repair program is what we're going to put in place.
All right, my experience is very limited as far as operating a budget or actually establishing a budget the size of the city. In my previous experience in leadership with the United States military, having a budget to stick with, I think it's incumbent upon the mayor to actually make sure that the departments within the mayor's jurisdiction, or the mayor's oversight, stays and works within their means. I think one of the biggest things within the city of Shreveport now is I think we have a lot of wasteful spending, and that's not to say that it's intentional, but the point is that it is going back to basics. It's much like your household budget. I have operated with budgets, like I say, in the military and in the private sector. Nothing of this magnitude. I'm smart enough to know what I don't know, but I'm also smart enough to know that I surround myself with people who know a lot more and are smarter than I am. So in answer to your question is that my experience is very limited on operating the magnitude of this budget of this size, but I think it's fundamental that you look at the costs of things going in, or the revenue coming in and the costs going out, and see if you can cut unnecessary or wasteful spending. I think that is one of the biggest things that we currently can do first. And upon taking office, every department will be audited, including the airport, both airports. Everybody has some areas where they could do better. And it's incumbent upon the mayor's office to ensure and hold them accountable and responsible for doing just that. And I think there's a lot of money. I would say a lot of money. I think there's enough money in there that we could do some other things once we find, So in answer to your question, I welcome the opportunity to take a look at that, and actually, I say, surround myself with people that are a lot smarter than I am that can make recommendations on how to go forward.
Well, I have had the experience of doing that as a CEO when I was the superintendent of Cattle Public Schools, when I was a superintendent of New Orleans Public Schools, and when I was superintendent at the state level for the state of Louisiana. So I'm accustomed to actually operating a large budget, being able to execute on the things that we are supposed to execute and use those funds in the most effective and efficient manner that's possible. So I have that experience. I've had that with the last several positions I've held in corporate America, particularly in the school system. And so in my mind, it means that we need to look at how we use every dollar. And so what we've done with, since I've been mayor, every department, of course, has to put in place, goals that are measurable and how we spend our money. So what we've done is we place it on the website, And every department has to report every year how the money is being spent and what projects are being executed so that our citizens can have, a good quality of life. And so that's really what a CEO does. That person ensures that the funding is used appropriately. And with that experience, we've had the experience with capital budgets, we've had the experience with bonding, we've had the experience with capital improvements, all facets of how to utilize a budget, a large budget such as this one. We have no problem in doing that. And when we don't have the money we need to execute on the services we have, if there are challenges, then we have to look at how we can partner with other people. And we've done that with private industry. We've done that with nonprofits. We've done that with other civic groups. We've done that with other governmental entities. And then you're able to leverage the funds to be able to provide a good quality of life.